yourself to the back of your mat in child pose, beginning by settling down onto the ground like a small rock in the stream of life. So finding where that's comfortable for you, which might mean your knees need to be wider or you need to rest your head on your hands. And as you settle your body down, as you allow the ground to support you, begin to breathe more consciously, more slowly. Shifting into your ocean-sounding, victorious breath. Ujjayi pranayama means victorious breath. Remaining calm even in the midst of intensity. Taking another few breaths here to center physically, but also mentally, emotionally, using the breath, the exhale to let go, whatever you need to let go of. And the inhale to draw in, to bring your attention inwards, to bring a little bit more life and the prana or the life energy that comes in on the in-breath inwards. And with your next inhale, uncurl easily, coming up to kneeling, adjusting your knees if you need to. Take your arms out and up overhead, and as you exhale, draw them down along your midline, bringing them to center at your heart, palms together. Using that connection of your thumbs to your sternum to lift your sternum, to open the bottom of your ribs and your lungs so that you can continue to breathe big now that you're upright. And tuning in with our Adi mantra, Om Namo Gurudev Namo, which means infinite creative consciousness, I name you. Divine wisdom within, I name you. Breathing in for the first of three. Om Namo Gurudev Namo. Om Namo Gurudev Namo. Om Namo Gurudev Namo. As you inhale, let your eyes open if they were closed. Bring your hands down from your heart and shift forward and bring yourself into your low lunge on the left. So you're going to step your left foot forward. Curl your back toes under, and we're going to transition from this low lunge into a high lunge. So lift your back knee up, bringing your feet parallel to each other and to the short ends of your mat. Let your knees soften a little bit once you find your feet, so you can uncurl and make your way up to standing, checking that this distance between your feet is manageable. If it feels like you're going to slide into a split, narrow your stance. Once you're upright, lift your 10 toes and press the outer edges of your feet into the ground so your arches are engaged. Use that lift of your toes and your arches to lift your kneecaps. Think of drawing your kneecaps, thigh muscles upwards. So you're not locking your knees back, but lifting them up instead. And then bring your hands to the back of your skull and lift your head up away from the ground. Drop your shoulders down away from your neck, and then begin to move your hips in circles, keeping your head relatively still. Once you can feel that your head and shoulders are not following your hips, bring your hands down to your hips so you can feel the front hip bones with your fingertips and the hip crests on the sides with the palms of your hands. Feel the action of the muscles and the movement of the bones as you continue to circle your hips, keeping your legs long and your spine long, making big circles with your hips as though your hips are a hula hoop. Once you have a sense of your hips moving, your hands can either stay there as long as your shoulders don't creep up, or you can create little rabbit paws by bending your elbows, letting them relax by your sides, and letting your hands hang from your forearms, which are parallel to the ground. The advantage of this, even though it looks fairly naff, is that your hands are relaxed and your shoulders are relaxed. And then you also have your inner elbows to move your outer hips towards to give you a place to open out into. If you feel balanced, close your eyes. This is a really simple movement, but very effective. And what this movement reminds me of is the way water wears away stone, not usually in one fell swoop, but over time, with continued application of the water over the stone. So each circle, if you're finding any tight areas in your hips, use each circle to just carve out a little bit more space. And you may want to connect your inhale into that tight spot. And this movement also gives us a sense of how complex the hips are, how much is actually involved. So notice if you're feeling this in your inner thighs, which we don't necessarily think of as the hips, or in your low back. The next time that you inhale, change the direction and see if that feels any different. And at that transition point of going the other way, check that your legs are still long and that your spine is long. So if you find that you're sinking into your low back, imagine your head as a hot air balloon being drawn up towards the sky, taking your spine with it. So you're lifting out of your low back. There's more space in there. This movement can be really effective for releasing tension in the low back. This is also a really great one to do with some music playing, some music that makes you want to move. So if you're practicing with somebody else, if possible, close your eyes, so that you're tuning your attention inside. And even if you're practicing on your own, if you feel balanced, close your eyes and drop your mind's eye into that circularity, into that sense of flow. It's one of the key words for the hip area, flow. In these last few breaths, these last few circles, imagine that you're some exotic creature and this is your mating dance. And that the movement of your hips is drawing your mate towards you. There's a sense of provocation. This area is all about the relationship we have, the intimate relationship we have with ourselves and then with the other. Everybody's eyes are closed. It doesn't matter what it looks like. Find out what it feels like to create that big, sexy, circular, seductive movement. So notice if your jaw clenches at that word or that idea of sexy. Find space between your top and bottom teeth and let your tongue relax in your mouth. Just play with this a bit. And then bring your hips back to center. Let your toes relax, your arms lengthen down, bend your knees a little bit, and feel how that bend in your knees takes your weight down into your feet, so you can really trust your feet on the ground. But at the same time, lift up through the back of your skull, so your spine's long. So it's kind of like a martial arts horse stance. Just feeling, what has that simple movement done to your hips? What are you feeling in your legs, in your pelvis? We're going to continue to open the hips and do that standing frog pose I talked about earlier. So if your eyes are closed, open your eyes, turn your heels in or your toes out or a combination so that you have a slight angle. If you go too wide with the toes, it's hard on the knees and it's hard to balance. Keeping your knees bent, same as we did in the squat, open your knees out over your feet. So to help that alignment, lift your toes. So you lift your inner arches. And then bring one hand to your belly and one hand to your low back, and draw your belly in and up, just like we did with the core work in the beginning. So you feel your low back lengthen and your tailbone drop down like it's weighted. Notice how this affects the opening of the knees. So see if you can keep your core lifted and long and press the outer edges of your feet into the ground. So if it feels like your feet are too wide or too narrow, adjust. See if you can find where your knees are over your ankles. Now that you have the foundation in the legs and in the core, we're going to add the arms in. Bring your arms out to the sides, parallel to the ground. Turn your palms to face up, and then bend your elbows and look to see that you have right angles at your inner elbows. So your arms frame your head like a big picture frame around your head, spreading your fingers out and your shoulders down. Let your legs and your core hold you up, and find your breathing in here like you're suctioning the breath up out of the ground, pulling it up through your legs until it joins at your spine, drawing it up your spine and extending it out through your arms and your head on the exhale. Next time that you inhale, lengthen your arms and your legs by pushing the ground away with your feet. And as you lengthen up, bring your feet parallel to each other and to the short ends of the mat, like you're standing on train tracks. Take a breath here in 5-pointed star. Shoulders on your back. And as you exhale, turn towards your right foot. So you're twisting your torso, keeping your hands opposite each other, and then release over, left hand towards your right leg, wherever it gets to without bending your knees. Inhale, push the ground away with your feet, lift up with your thighs and your belly, and turn towards the left. And then exhale and release over. This is called Windmill. Find your pace with it. Keep it as slow as you can, as though you're moving through something denser than air. Inhaling and coming up, and turning your torso to face off the short end of the mat before you exhale and release over, so that you get a bit of a twist in the spine. And finding where you can get to on your leg, don't worry about reaching your foot, unless that comes easily to you without bending your knees. So if you tend to bend your knees, look at them. Each time you release down, let your head release down and look at your knees. What's happening with them? Instead of bending the knees, lift them up. Lift your kneecaps, your thigh muscles up. The more you engage on the front of the legs, the more you support the release on the back of the legs. If you have any fear in your low back, try engaging your core to support your low back and not going down as far. But go to the place where you feel ease, still making change, opening space, but not creating more tension or more fear. If with all those adjustments you still feel fear in your low back or hamstrings, then bend your knees. Balance the stretch with safety. This next time that you release your left hand over towards your right leg, hang there, stay there, and let your head release down. Think of inhaling up through your legs, drawing the breath up until your sits bones, your hips lift away from your heels, and then exhaling down through your spine, letting your head release down, feeling, visualizing how the breath in the body takes you deeper into the stretch. Notice what's happened with your hips, if you've sunk the left hip down. If you feel a real deep stretch on your inner left thigh, then lift the left hip up towards the sky and even out your butt cheeks so they face evenly off the long edge of the mat behind you. Another way to find that is to press the outer edges of your feet evenly into the ground. So once you find the weight in your feet even and the hips even, keep your head released down and just change your arms. Take your right hand over towards your left leg. Notice when you make that transition, how you might get that inner right thigh stretch and your right hip might sink. So lift up through your right kneecap, right thigh muscles, square your hips. Get a sense of your feet even on the ground, your hips even in the air. And then long from there, let your spine release down long. Let the weight of your head take your spine longer to help you be with what you feel. Inhale up through your legs, exhale down through your spine. Just let your left arm hang up in the air. Your head hang down. To come up out of this pose without strain, bend your knees a little bit and uncurl your spine as you release your arms, bringing yourself back up to standing, keeping the legs still wide. And then we're going to come into Kali Devi again. So that was that wide-legged standing squat that we did before. Take your toes out conservatively so that when you bend your knees, you can get your knees to aim out over the middle of your toes. Draw your belly up so your low back is long. Align your shoulders above your hips so you're not leaning forward. So get a sense of the back of your head, your shoulders, and your buttocks all against an imaginary wall. And then add your arms in, bringing your arms out to frame your head, keeping them light, because what's holding you up here are your strong legs and core. If you're forgetting about the feet or forgetting about the knees, lift your toes to help protect the knees and to take the weight into the outer edges of the feet. Find the depth of your stance, where you feel your thighs come alive and you can still breathe. So Kali in Hindu mythology, Kali Devi, the goddess Kali, is a goddess of time. She's an incarnation of the primal force of the universe, Shakti, female energy of the universe. And in this incarnation of Durga Ma, the Divine Mother, she rides a lion or a tiger. So if you think of this as your tiger riding stance, as Kali Devi, she also wears a garland of skulls. She's no nonsense. Intense power. So these last 3 breaths, we're going to extend the tongue long, stretch it out over your chin, and roar like a lion or like a tiger. Inhale as you lengthen your legs. Push the ground away. Lengthen your arms, release them. Turn your left foot to face the front edge of your mat. Push off with your back foot and step it up to join your left foot. You might need a few steps so that you're standing at the front edge of the mat with your feet finally together after all that wide-legged work. And then moving into Utkatasana, intense pose, so we're still working the thighs. Bring your core into action. Draw your low belly in and up, so feel free to feel that with your hands. Draw your belly in and up so your low back is long. As you bend your knees, stick your butt out towards the back edge of the mat till you feel your weight come onto your heels. And notice how when you aim your butt back, that creates the natural curve or lordosis in the low back. But support that natural curve with your belly tucking in, keeping space between your vertebrae. And then find the depth. How much do you want to bend your knees until you feel your thighs are awake and alive? As you bring your arms up parallel to each other, broad shoulder width apart, so you have your chest open, that may help you balance and enable you to take your weight down and back a little bit more. Take a quick look down and see that you can see your big toes inside your kneecaps, so your knees haven't collapsed into center. Your arches are still lifted. Your internal foundation in your feet is still engaged. And then imagine, again, that your breath is coming up from the feet through the angular lines of the legs and the spine. This posture looks like a lightning bolt, so see if you can find that strong energy, not only of lifting up through the core, but also of dropping down through the back body, shoulders, and the tailbone, weighted down. The next time that you exhale, fold forward, and as you release your upper body forward, lift your legs up, lift your toes, your kneecaps, coming into standing yoga mudra. So as you draw your legs long, bring your arms behind your back, interlace your fingers with your palms facing each other. Look at your toes. Lift all 10 toes up, both inner arches lifted up. Look at your knees. Draw your kneecaps up, quadricep muscles engaged. Think of your sits bones under your butt cheeks, tilting up away from your heels. And feel your weight is over your arches instead of leaning back over your heels. Notice how that changes the stretch. As you exhale, release your spine from your hips. Let your head drop down. Let the top of your head drop towards your toes. Draw your arms towards each other with the muscles of your upper back, as though your shoulder blades want to move across your spine and touch each other. Your wrists might come together, they might not. Really depends on your flexibility. So it's a combination of drawing your arms towards each other and away from your back. Same kind of visualization here we've been working with, of inhaling from your feet up through your legs to your hips, drawing your hips a little higher at the full point of each inhale, and then exhaling and releasing down from there through the top of your head. So you create a circuit with the ground. The next time that you exhale, release your arms, bend your knees, relax your toes, bring your fingertips down by your toe tips on either side, And step your feet back towards the back edge of the mat. As you bring your feet back, line them up with each other. Look at your hands, check that they line up with each other, and your wrists are broad shoulder width apart as you spread your fingers out. And then bend your knees and lift your heels up above the balls of your feet. Lift your heels up really high, keeping your knees bent, your heels lifted. Push the ground away with the base of your fingers. Lengthen your arms and move your chest back towards your thighs, so your tail lifts up towards the sky. See if you can find that sense of your sits bones, your tail, leading up. And then keep that as you slowly start to stretch your heels towards the ground, only going to the point where your low back doesn't round towards the sky, where you keep your tail lifted. Bringing your ears between your arms, a lot of space around your neck, your breath flowing, even though you're upside down. Give yourself some breath. Use your next exhale to release your knees. Uncurl your toes. Keeping your hips right above your knees, walk your hands a little farther forward. So we're just going to do the upper body portion of what you just did. Keep your hands broad shoulder width apart. And let your forehead rest on the ground. If your knees are sensitive, shift your hips back a little bit so you're not right on the kneecaps, but you still have your butt up in the air. Press your shins down to give you a little bit of foundation. And then as you rest your head on the ground, push the ground away with your hands, keeping your hands broad shoulder width apart so that your elbows lengthen. See if you can find 2 long lines, one from each hand, the heel of each hand, to each hip. And then in those long lines, sway down at your shoulders. Drop your underarms, your chest, the front of your throat down towards the ground. Often what happens here is that the belly drops down, the low back sways. So tuck your belly up a little bit, support your low back so your tailbone's pointing away from your head, and then release your chest down until you feel that stretch in your shoulders. See if you can do that without your elbows touching the ground, keeping your hands broad shoulder width apart, breathing into your shoulders. This is puppy dog stretch. Last level of basics, we're going to take a look at taking puppy dog into down dog. So we're using the knees on the ground here to prep the shoulders, to open them for the up off the ground version of this, down dog. Use your next exhale to push the ground away with your hands. Walk your hips back over your heels so you're coming into extended child. Once you find where your hips are over your heels, check that you can rest your head on the ground. So you might need to walk your knees wider if it doesn't rest easily. Bring your hands around behind your back, yoga mudra. So it's the same arms that you did standing at the front edge of the mat. Interlace your fingers, and because you're probably interlaced the same way as last time, slide all of your fingers over one so your other thumb is on top. And then draw your arms up away from your back and in towards each other, keeping your hips resting on your heels and your head resting on the ground. As you lift your arms up, reach them up towards the sky, like you're trying to lift your whole body off the ground, so your shoulders don't slice down into your neck. Keep them away from your neck. The next time that you exhale, release your arms, roll over onto your back. We'll come back to the place where we started this level 5, Shavasana, corpse pose. And as you find yourself long and aligned, ankles in line with hips and shoulders, let your feet release off to the sides. Turn your palms to face up as you bring your arms a comfortable distance from your sides so they're not crammed in next to you. And let your upper back broaden. When you relax your hands and your arms, notice if your lower back isn't quite happy. If that's the case, shift your bum so that you can release into your lower back. And let go of the weight in your head. So for a few moments, anything that plagues your mind can drop away. Allowing your head to rest heavily on the ground and your eyes to close and be still. and your jaw to slightly open. So your mouth may be closed, but there's space between your top and bottom teeth, so your jaw is relaxed. Let that release down into your throat, so you feel spacious in the channel of your throat. At this stage, you can let go of the breath as well as the body, allowing your muscles to be heavy. So particularly noticing some of those big muscles in the thighs and the buttocks that we were working with today. And if it feels like they're wrapped in tight towards the bones or the joints, imagine them like a heavy fabric draped over the bones. And then keeping as much of that ease as you can, that spaciousness that you've imagined, hopefully felt in your body, keep that with you and engage only what you need. Be conscious in this transition. Deepen your breath. Extend your breath through your torso and feel that. And then imagine your breath extending beyond your torso, right down into your arms and legs and up into your brain. And somewhere in the next few breaths, stretch long, reach long through your legs and lengthen your arms above your head as much as works for your shoulder joints. And as you lengthen out long through your body, on your exhale, roll over to your right side, finding a comfortable place there. Even though it's a transition, keep it easy. Bend your knees, let your head stay relaxed. Bring your left hand in front of you to push the ground away. Uncurl without a lot of effort. Bring yourself up to sit tall. And as you come upright, find your comfortable seated position, the length of your spine. Keep your ocean-sounding breath with you. Stretch your fingertips down towards the ground without putting any weight in your hands. So you're holding yourself up through your core strength. Imagine you're breathing from your pelvis, just like we did lying down, from your pelvis up to your neck. As you exhale next, keep all that lift and let your head roll to the right side. As you release the weight of your head, take your next inhale and lift it up from the pelvis, through the belly, through your back and ribs and chest, all the way up into the open left side of your neck, creating a deeper stretch. Keeping the same contact left to right in your hands so your shoulders stay even. You're not rolling your shoulders to follow your head. Feeling both waists are long and even. If you want to intensify this, turn your palms up and tuck your elbows in so you look like Lady Justice with the scales. If that feels like too much and you're not breathing, then just keep your arms long. Give that side of your neck one more inhale, and as you exhale, release your head down along your collarbones. And as you roll through center, hold onto your knees and curve back through your spine. Breathe there for a moment, perhaps rolling your chin along your collarbones if that feels good. As you inhale next, draw yourself upright again and stretch your fingers towards the ground. Roll your head to the left. Finding the angle that you can release the weight of the head without holding tight in the body or breath. Breathing up into the right side of your neck. Does this side feel any different? If it's too intense, you'll know it, because the breath will change or will get lost, or you'll find that you're clenching your jaw, or you'll be trying to hold your head. You can let your head go. This next time that you inhale, lift the space of the breath up into your neck. And as you exhale, release your chin down along your collarbones. When you get to center, keep your head dropped down. Inhale and stretch your arms up overhead and let your head be lifted up by your chest and your breath. Bringing your head and your arms up, bring your palms together, gather up whatever sort of energy you'd like to carry with you off the mat. Collect it between your hands and draw it down along the center of your body. Acknowledging yourself in your practice, giving yourself a namaste, an acknowledgement of your inner light. If you're practicing with anyone else, acknowledging them as well. Namaste.